Okay, so we can set our camera up where it's not mounted on the hot shoe, but is mounted on the sync cord like we've done here. And again, the reason for that is it allows us the flexibility to use the flash at varying angles. And there are two major important reasons we want to do that. One, like we mentioned before, and you should now have in your notes, is that it allows us then to manipulate shadows. Because we said there are three reasons to use flash. When color is important, when we need enough light, or we need more light, and then we need to manipulate shadows. The other important useful feature of using off-camera flash, which is what we have now, is it allows us, like we mentioned, to get rid of red eye. But also, sometimes in our photos, we get these glares or reflections, particularly when we take photos of things behind glass. So let's imagine that you're on a tour and you've gone to the Smithsonian, and there's this really neat artifact that's behind a glass case. Well, what happens sometimes is you go to take a photograph of that artifact, but it's behind glass. And if the flash goes off, sometimes you'll get a glare off of the glass case that's in your photo. Whenever you get a glare in the photo from a reflection from the flash, we call that a hot spot. And that happens, for example, if I was using a camera like this, and I was using this pop-up flash, imagine that there is this display case, I go to take a photo, the light from the flash hits the glass case and bounces straight back, leaving that glare, again, called a hot spot. One way to get rid of that glare is to, instead of having the flash right next to the lens, if I move the flash to the side, now when the light hits the glass case, it's not going to bounce straight back at the camera. I'm going to get rid of that hot spot. So an added benefit of using off-camera flash, besides the ability to move shadows or create shadows, is it gets rid of red eye and it allows us to get rid of hot spots. There's one other way to get rid of hot spots. We talked about it earlier this semester. I'm curious if you can remember. What could we also use to get rid of reflections and glare in our photos? A polarizing filter. If I put a polarizing filter on the front of my camera lens, that will also get rid of reflections and glare. The problem, though, typically is, though, with a flash, that is a really strong reflection. So even a polarizing filter typically won't completely get rid of it. So it's better instead to use that off-camera flash. Can you think of a situation in a crime scene where you might get a hot spot that you might need to use off-camera flash to get rid of it? Yeah, anything underneath water. Yeah. So that's a great example. So we have someone that was drowned. Maybe there's a fountain, right? I think wasn't that one of the movies? Tom Hanks was in those. What were the movies about? He was a language guy. Dan Brown wrote those books.
Oh, like Da Vinci Code?
Yeah, Da Vinci Code. Yes. I think in the Da Vinci Code, maybe it was the second one, I think that someone gets strangled to death and then their body's submerged under the water in a fountain. So anyway, just think about there's a body in a fountain submerged. Maybe it's just maybe a foot underneath the water. If you're going to take a photograph of that body under that pool of water, if you take a flash photo, which you might have to do, if you have the light pointed straight at the water, you might get back in your face a glare, a hot spot.
What angle would you put that in? Like if you're taking a top photo of the body, so you're going...
Sure, so if I have my camera directly above the body, I'm going to move my flash to the side.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that, especially when we talk about photographing footwear impressions, about where to hold the flash. That's a great example. Can you guys think of another example? Again, a crime scene situation where I might get a hot spot, but I'd like to get rid of it. Yeah. Inside a car, exactly right. So just think about, maybe we have a dead body in a car. So some reports that a body was found inside the car. We're going to, before we open the car, by the way, and process it, we're going to photograph the outside of the car. We're going to photograph what the body looks like inside the car, and so maybe the car windows are rolled up. So you roll up on that scene at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. You got to take a photo of the person sitting in there in the driver's seat dead, but you got to take a photo through the glass. If you're not careful, what do you get in your photo? Hot spot. let's say the car was involved in an accident and you needed to photograph the VIN number. Again, where's the best place to find the VIN number? On the dashboard, but to see it, you got to go through the windshield. So you got to take a photo through the glass. If you point the flash and the camera straight at the glass, you're going to get a reflection, a hot spot, and you're probably not even going to be able to read the VIN number anymore. Yes?
Something that I know from this previous work history,
Uh-huh.
it's not a good idea to take the picture of the VIN number from the door, because if the door was ever replaced, that VIN number could be different.
Well, we're going to take multiple VIN numbers. Keep in mind that VIN number on a car is found in multiple locations. So if a car, for example, has gone to a chop shop and they've taken it apart, and you have, because you could have a car that has a different VIN number on the door than the one that was on the windshield. There are VIN numbers in multiple places on a car. We're going to photograph all the ones that we can get to. Some VIN numbers, by the way, you can't get to without taking the car apart. But we're going to definitely photograph not just the one on the door, but also the one that's on the dashboard. All right, so there are obviously examples where a hot spot could create a problem. Let's imagine, see, this dry erase board, right? White, really reflective. Let's imagine someone was standing here, and maybe one of you guys just got really mad at him. Maybe it's me. And maybe just beat the hell out of me with a baseball bat. And so we have these splashes of blood, these blood spatters. Let's say you need to take photographs of those blood spatters on the wall. If you were taking a flash photo of that blood spatter on this really reflective surface, guess what you might get in the photo? Hot spots, glares. So you have to be very careful. And keep in mind, the spatters, the droplets are actually pretty small. And so if you get glares, you might actually lose some of the detail you need to see. So that's an example. So we're going to talk a little bit later about different flash techniques, and one of them is called off-camera flash. In fact, we've already talked about it primarily. Why do we move it off camera? It's to get better angles for shadows, for eliminating hot spots, to get rid of red eye, all those things. All right. Okay. Let me open my presentation back up. With our flash, with our Nikon flash, this is a hybrid flash, right? Which means I can make it a dedicated flash by putting it in TTL mode. I can make it a semi-automatic flash by putting it in either auto or manual mode. If I want to control it, I would put it in manual mode. If I want the flash to control itself, I put it in auto mode. Of the three different modes, which one do you think we're going to use most often at a crime scene? TTL, auto, or manual? We actually use auto the most. Manual, I think your first response with manual is because we're kind of control freaks, which I get. We are. Because we definitely use the camera in manual mode. The problem, though, you guys just picked up on it real quick. If I had the flash in manual mode, every time I used it, I would have to do what? I would have to use my equation, do a calculation. Now, the great thing about the flash in auto mode, right? So everybody turn your flash in auto mode. Which, again, on these flashes is going to be the AA mode. All right, so you got your flash in auto mode. Yeah, okay. Just give me 1 second, Ron, I'll give you something. Now, since we're using the flash, we have to do some setup. First thing we have to do is set the camera to the appropriate sync speed. So let's make sure our camera is in M for manual mode. And what is the sync speed for our camera? 80 or 50, or 80 or 90, depending upon which model you have. If you have the D40, it's 80. If you have the D50, it's 90. So please set your shutter speed at the sync speed. Okay, do that. And then the good thing, the one very useful thing about flash is we don't have to set the shutter speed anymore. Once we have it set there, it stays there for the entire time. So that's nice. All right. Now, what I'd like you to do next is I'd like you to set your aperture to f8. Set your aperture at f8. Do that for me, please. By the way, some of you still have your flashes attached to the sync cord. Some of you have it on top of your camera. It doesn't matter. Either way is fine. So if you have it still attached to your sync cord, that's great. Or if you have it on top of the camera, that's fine too. So I want you to have your flash in automatic mode. The camera's in manual mode because we still need to manipulate aperture. I need you to set your shutter speed to the sync speed, which is either 80 or 90, depending upon your model. And then I want you to set your aperture at f8. Has everybody done that? Okay. We do need to reference, though, quickly our equation here again. Okay. The equation says that your f-stop is equal to the guide number divided by distance. Now, right now, I have you set your aperture at what? f8. So I want us to put that into our equation. 8 equals guide number divided by distance. 8 is our f-stop. Distance is 150. I want you to solve for, guide number is 150. I want you to solve for distance. All right, so 8 equals 150 divided by x. If you do some cross multiplication, you're going to get 8x equals 150. So then you're going to get 150 divided by 8 if you divide 8 by both sides. 150 divided by 8 is going to be around 19 feet. Okay? Why did I have you do that? 19 feet is now the maximum range of this flash when it's at f8. You with me so far? Okay. Right now, my flash is set at automatic mode. My shutter speed is at the sync speed. And I've got it set at f8. So far, so good. Let's say I want to take a photo of Polita here. It's only about 4 feet away from me. If I took a photo of Polita here at 4 feet using f8 with the flash in auto mode, would the photo be overexposed, underexposed, or properly exposed? Think about this for a moment. 4 feet. Think about this for just a moment. Right. Is the flash going to fire at full power? No. Why? The flash is going to turn itself down. The flash is going to realize that Polita is only about 4 feet away from me. So if I went to take a photo, the flash is going to turn itself down, rendering the photo properly exposed. Remember, when the flash is in auto mode, it uses its own light meter to adjust its output. If I then turned my camera and I want to take a photo of Anna, Anna is 10 feet away. Would that photo be overexposed, underexposed, or properly exposed? If it's an AA, it should still be properly exposed because the flash will, she's a little bit farther away than Polita is, so the flash is going to do what? It's going to turn itself up just a little bit more, but it's still adjusting. Now I'm going to take a photo of Gabe. Gabe is 15 feet away. Is he going to be properly exposed, overexposed, or underexposed? Still properly exposed because in all three situations, Paulita, who is 4 feet, Anna, who is 10 feet, and Gabe is 15 feet, they're all within the range. Remember, this equation is given that the flash is firing at full power. So at f8, if the flash fires at full power, which gives it a guide number of 150, then the distance is 19, and that is the max distance. Meaning that if I'm taking photos less than that, it'll simply turn itself down. However, what if I'm going to go take a photo now of Ron? Ron is 30 feet away from me. Would it be properly exposed, underexposed, or overexposed? At f8, it would be underexposed. Because at f8, the maximum distance, if we use our equation, is 19. But what we could do is we could figure out, okay, he's farther away. I'm going to have to do what with my aperture? Open it up or close it down? I'm going to have to open it up. I can simply use my equation to figure that out, right? I know he's 30 feet away. The guide number is 150. 150 divided by 30 is 5. So if I simply adjust it to f5, or 4.8, then I can take a photo of Ron. All right, so if I adjust it to f4, let's just say f4. Could I take a photo of Ron and have it be properly exposed? Ron's 30 feet away from me? Yes. Could I then go back and take a picture of Polita using f4? Would it still be properly exposed? Yes, because again, the flash is in automatic mode, which means it does what? It turns itself down. Do you see why, of the different modes, why we would choose to use automatic mode? Because when it's in automatic mode, the flash will, as long as I'm within the range, the flash will adjust itself. So let's think about this for a moment. This room is about 30 feet by 30 feet, right? If I set my aperture at f4, what is the maximum range of my flash? Using my equation, f4, 4 equals 150 divided by x, which is distance. 150 divided by 4 is what? Someone do the math for me here. About 37 feet, 38 feet. So think about that for a moment. If I simply walk into this room, set my aperture at f4, set my flash at auto, I can walk around the room and do what? Just take pictures. I would not have to worry about adjusting aperture or shutter. I would set my shutter speed always at what? Sync speed. Set my aperture at f4, and as long as everything I'm taking a photo of is within the range, I can simply rely on the flash to turn itself up or turn itself down, depending upon how close or far away I am. So do you see why using the flash in automatic mode is so helpful? Because I could walk into a room, and as long as I have the right setup, I could take 50 pictures in this room like that. Because I wouldn't have to keep adjusting from photo to photo. You understand that? Now, use some critical thinking though. Why might I not want to simply open up my aperture all the way and do it that way? I'm not worried about overexposure because, again, the flash is going to turn itself up or down. I'm not worried. It's not an exposure issue. It's a what issue? Depth of field. Good job. What happens when I open up my aperture all the way? What do I lose? Depth of field. So that's why it would be better to start around f8. Because f8, as long as everything's within 20 feet, I'm good. It's only when I need to take photos a little bit farther away that I might need to open up my aperture a little farther. Because will you get more depth of field from f4, which is all the way open, or f8, which is partially closed down? Remember the rule. The more closed down your aperture is, the more depth of field you'll get. So we really don't want to use f4 if we don't have to. Does that start to make sense to you guys? So the majority of the time, if I'm in an interior crime scene, like a home, I'm simply going to set my shutter speed at the sync speed. I'm going to set my aperture at around f8. I'm going to set my flash on auto mode. And considering most homes, the rooms are 20 feet or less, I can walk into a kitchen, a bathroom, a bedroom. I can simply just walk around and snap photos. Because if you watch crime scene photographers at work, most of the time that's what they're doing. They walk over, they snap a photo. They walk over here, they snap a photo. Because they don't need to, as long as they recognize that what they're taking a photo is within the range that they've already calculated, they can just snap photos. Now they have to remember to focus each time, right? But they can move pretty quickly there. Make sense? Are there times, though, when we're going to have to use the flash in manual mode? Yes. Ron, could you grab the two lights for me real quick? I'm going to show you an example of a situation where we would. And by the way, we're almost done for tonight, another 20 minutes or so. All right, let's look at these two photos here. We have two photos. These are just two basic photos of some DPS squad cars. Looking at these two photos, one of these photos is properly exposed, the other one is underexposed. The one to the left is properly exposed, that's correct. The one to the right is actually underexposed, it's actually too dark. Now what probably set some of you off is you saw this really bright reflector and you thought, oh, that's overexposed. The reflector is overexposed, but the photo in general, this one is the correct one. This one's actually too dark. If you look at the wheel wells, they're too dark, you can't see under the car, you can hardly see anything behind it. It's actually underexposed. It's because this photo on the right was taken with the flash in auto mode. Now remember, when the flash is in auto mode, Ron, could you grab the lights for me again?
Can you set the ISO?
When the flash is in auto mode, who controls the flash? Not the camera. The flash controls itself. I'm going to get that in your guys' head. By the end of the night, I'm going to have that pounded in. Remember, TTL mode, camera controls it. But we don't ever use that, by the way. We don't ever use the flash in TTL. We do use it in auto mode. And when the flash is in auto mode, the flash controls itself. When we say it controls itself, we mean that it controls its power output. What does it use to determine its power output? A light meter, and it's a reflective light meter. What is on the side of this squad car? A bright reflective strip. So what happens is, when you point the flash at that squad car, that light meter, right there on the front of the flash, it's seeing this really bright light from that reflective strip. And so the flash is freaking out, going, whoa, way too much light. So what does the flash do? It turns itself down, too far down, ultimately rendering the photo slightly underexposed. The photo on the left, which is done correctly, the photographer recognized the problem and turned the flash into manual mode, utilized this equation to figure out what the right f-stop should be, and then took the photo. Whenever you have something in your photo which is really, really bright, examples is something really reflective, or a really bright light, you're going to have to flip the flash in manual mode and no longer allow the flash to control itself. Can you think of other things besides the reflective strip on the side of a squad car that might be similar to that, cause a similar problem? Yeah, construction workers, they'll wear like these vests that have reflective strips, but guess what, so do the officers. If you ever see a highway patrol officer that pulls someone over on the side of the freeway at night, they will put a vest on as they approach the car, not a bulletproof vest, which they might be wearing that too, but they'll put a vest on the outside that has these reflective strips, so the cars driving by can see them, right? I'll get to your question in just a second, Chris. So if you have police officers, if you have a nighttime scene, for example, and you have officers walking around in your scene, you might have these reflective strips from these clothing that they're wearing. That's a good example. What else? Yeah, bicycles, the reflector off a bicycle, 100%. What else?
Runner.
Yeah, runners, sometimes they'll have reflective strips on their clothing or on their shoes. So if we had a decedent, someone who was hit by a car, and they have that reflective clothing on, what else? Oh, just a light in general. Think about if you were at a scene, and there, you know the construction barriers that have those bright flashing lights? Right? What about just normal street signs? Normal street signs are reflective. They're supposed to be so that when you're driving at night and your lights hit them, you can read them in. If you were taking a photo of a stop sign and you took it in auto mode, it's going to come out underexposed. You're going to have to flip the flash into manual mode to take that photo. And one of the first photos we take, by the way, at any crime scene is of the street signs showing the location of that crime scene. And if you screw it up, you screwed it up from the very beginning. Very first photo you took, you screwed it up. What else? How about flares? If there's a flare on the ground and you're trying to take a photo, the flare is going to screw up that light meter reading and it's going to render it underexposed. How about cones? You know the cones that have that bright reflective strip? What kind of crime scenes, by the way, do you find almost all of these things we've been talking about? Accident scenes. So accident scenes are a pain in the butt because you also have the ambulance in the background with their lights going off, or the, what's that? And the fire department. So guess what sorts of crime scenes, please write this in your notes. What sort of crime scenes are you going to have to use the flash in manual mode the most? Accident scenes, car accidents, nighttime car accidents, require you to use the flash in manual mode a lot. Street signs, road flares, reflective tape, all these things cause problems when the flash is trying to make its meter readings. So you're going to have to put the flash in manual mode, and then you're going to have to make the adjustments. So how do you make the adjustments? Let's say I've got a body on the ground now. I need to take a photo of the body. That body is 15 feet away. If I put the flash in manual mode, and I have it set to fire at full power. Remember, full power is 1/1. If it's full power, that means the guide number is 150. If the body is 10 feet away, the guide number is 150. What f-stop should I use to take a picture of that body? 150 divided by 10 is 15. Closest f-stop would be f16. So what that means then with accidents is you can't really use the flash in auto mode the way you could with other scenes, which is also a major pain. Because guess what kind of crime scenes require you to work the fastest? Accident scenes. Because they've got, imagine you're on, remember I worked for DPS. So the types of scenes we responded to were vehicle accidents on I-10, right? They've got the interstate closed down. We have to photo document the scene so that they can then move the vehicles off so that then they can open up the freeway. Well, the problem is now we have to use our flash in manual mode, so every single photo we need to do our calculations, make our adjustments, take our photos. And remember, we're taking hundreds of photos. So it's very stressful. Right? So just be aware. You're going to have to use the flash in manual mode occasionally, and the most common scenes are accident scenes.